5 Live Formula One.
Just off the tip of the Malay Peninsula is where Formula One finds itself for round 18 of the Formula One World Championship in this 2025 season. Welcome to Singapore, the original night race, but the weekend begins in the daylight. Free practice one ahead of us. It's Harry Benjamin with you up in the commentary box. Plenty to discuss over the next hour or so as we get the first bit of track action underway in a few minutes' time. Keeping an eye on things for us. Down on the ground, though, our eyes and ears in the pit lane. Jenny Gow. Morning, Jen. Hot and humid?
Good morning, good afternoon. I have no idea what time zone it is anymore, but it's certainly daylight. That's all I know right now. If I look up into the skies, it's quite cloudy actually, not sunshiny today, but quite muggy. We've had some spots of rain, nothing too dramatic. And as I look into the McLaren garage, Oscar Piastri, our championship leader by 25 points, has just slotted himself into his 81 car, getting himself comfortable. We'll see all kinds of different helmets this weekend, day glow, lights up, all sorts of things. But for the moment, in the light, it's all plain sailing here. No Norris at the moment.
Thank you very much, Jen. We'll check in with you throughout the session. Up in the commentary box alongside me for Friday's action is F1 journalist and host of Inside the Piranha Club podcast, Rebecca Clancy. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever we're going with.
Good day. How are you, Harry?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. Very excited about this one.
Yes, looking forward to it. I mean, the first night race, Singapore, I mean, it's a gruelling track, isn't it? Probably the most gruelling for the drivers.
I mean, just even as a spectator, it is very, very gruelling. I was also 6 months pregnant here 3 years ago, and I can tell you that was horrendous. Yes, lots of swollen ankles by the end of the day. But yes, for the drivers, it's absolutely gruelling. They'll be expecting to lose about 3 kilos in body weight. That is pretty much all sweat over the course of what is usually a 2-hour race. It normally goes to the maximum here. Very high chance we'll see a safety car as well, 83% given from the last 6 races. So yes, there is so much to play for. It's a very tight, twisty street track. The barriers are absolutely up against the track. It is completely unforgiving. We all normally see a bit of drama here, and as Jen mentioned, there's some clouds in the sky. It has been raining, and we have got a chance of rain all weekend.
Indeed, it ebbs and flows. When you're 140 kilometres north of the equator, things can change quite quickly. You get about 70% humidity on average. The cockpits of these Formula One cars can get up to 60 degrees, physically demanding. As Beck was saying, 3 to 4 kilos can be lost just through perspiration alone across Sunday. And for the first time ever, the FIA coming into this weekend, Beck, well, they issued a heat hazard. What is that?
A heat hazard race, yes. So this is basically means that when a race gets to 30, 31 degrees or hotter, the drivers have to, well, they don't have to, it's not mandatory this year, it will be from next year, but for this year it's optional to wear what is basically effectively a cooling vest. And so they will have a device within their car. It was, when it was initially announced, it was called aircon for the car, which is quite hard to get your head around in an open cockpit racing. But it's basically effectively, so they'll have sort of like dry ice in the car, and that will feed through tubes within their vest that they'll wear, and that will cool them down. Carlos Sainz did trial it earlier this year in Jeddah, and he said it lasted about 15 minutes, so not ideal. For any driver not wearing the vest, the teams will have to put in half a kilo of ballast just so it's even. But yes, we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it works. We know things heat up pretty quickly. As you say, in the cockpit, it gets up to about 60 degrees. They do also have the option of having a water bottle with them during the race. But again, that's basically like tea by lap 2 because it's just so hot. They know it's grueling, they know it's challenging. They will have done a lot of their training in heat chambers. Valtteri Bottas famously brings his spin bike into the sauna, very Finnish of him. They do so much work to get themselves acclimatized to what is happening this weekend. They start hydrating days and days before the race even happens, knowing that they're going to lose so much sweat. So yes, we'll see the first heat hazard race, but it'll be interesting to see how many drivers use it in the race. I can pretty much guarantee they'll all be trialling it in practice. George Russell was saying it's quite uncomfortable, it's quite tight. As you can imagine in the cockpit, it's already quite claustrophobic. This is obviously an extra layer. It's not particularly thick, but it is still an extra layer. adding to the heat as well, because it's a bit of a thicker underwear. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see who actually races with it on Sunday and how they do, because as I say, it's mandatory from next year.
Yeah, it's interesting to start talking about ballast. We get into touring car terminology almost. But no, this is still Formula One, so we'll be keeping an eye on that to see how the testing of that goes throughout practice and who indeed opts for it when it comes to Sunday's Grand Prix. Right, I believe we've got the green light on at the end of the pit lane. FP1, Jenny Gow, underway.
And no one's moving so far. There's just a lot of the drivers sitting in their vehicles, getting cold air blasted at them, and you can see the dry ice just lifting up around the cockpit. It's kind of beautiful, and as the sun starts to set, it should set about 1.5 hours from now, maybe an hour and a half, maybe an hour's time. So we'll see how it progresses as we go through this hour-long session. But I think we've got some drivers going out on track from the far end, and if I look to my right now, the McLaren of Oscar Piastri is going out on track as well, using a set of the hard tyres for the moment.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah, Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls, Nico Hulkenberg in the Sauber, and Ollie Behrman with his Haas teammate Esteban Ocon are the first cars to make their way out onto this track. And for those who wish to do a sync-up, it's coming at you now. 58 minutes and 49, 48, 47, 46 seconds remain of this free practice one session around the Marina Bay Street Circuit. Stretches out across over 3 miles actually around the bumpy streets of the Lion City. An abundance of short and medium speed 90-degree turns, strong traction, an absolute must here for a quick lap. But of course the conditions change, as we've been saying. We start this in the late afternoon in Singapore with the daylight still upon us. FP2 will be in the night time and more representative of qualifying and Sunday's Grand Prix conditions. So we'll see a drop in track temperature as well between the sessions, different cooling methods needed as well, and all sorts of things like the brightness of the dash needs to be altered. The LED shifting on the gears along with the helmet visors are all the differences you'll see when it comes to a street race in the night time. Back to you, Jen. More cars out on track.
Yeah, sorry, it's just got a little bit noisy. Lando Norris goes out in his McLaren. Just talking about this track, it's so special, and a lot of the drivers really enjoy racing here. They enjoy the challenge that it offers. But it's worth noting that this track has been resurfaced in several places, turns 3, 9, 10, 12, 14 and 17. And there's a hope that that will take some of that bumping and bounce out of the car, because it was quite uncomfortable last year for some of the drivers. So we'll see how that unfolds, and we'll get some reaction after this first session, but hopefully it's an improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. It will be something that everybody has to get up to speed with. Indeed, pretty much everybody is now out on track. So it's a busy start to free practice in Singapore. By the way, if you want to get in touch throughout the course of the day, we'll have FP1 and FP2. Always welcome your questions. You can send them in on hashtag BBCF1 or on our email. It's f1@bbc.co.uk, and we'll try to get to those as soon as we can. Oscar Piastri embarks on his first flying lap, making his way up through turns 1, 2 and 3, leads him out of the left-hander down Republic Boulevard towards the right-hander of turn 5. We'll have a lot of support here with Oscar Piastri, not too far away from his home country in Australia, and he is the man who leads the World Championship by 25 points ahead of his teammate Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, though, 69 points back from Piastri's lead, with Russell and Charles Leclerc rounding out the top 5 in the drivers. And over in the team's championship, it looks almost a certainty that McLaren will take the constructors' title on Sunday under the lights in Singapore. They are 333 points clear at the moment. Mercedes second, with Ferrari in third. Red Bull now mathematically out of contention for the title. They're down fourth. Williams round out the top 5 with a tight battle for 6th, currently occupied by Racing Bulls against Aston Martin and Sauber, with Haas and Alpine a little further adrift down in 9th and 10th over in the constructors' standings, as Piastri goes fastest in the middle sector. And indeed, Beck, I mean, we've got to get into it. What an uncharacteristic weekend Baku was for our championship leader. He still maintains that gap of 25 points, but it's only 25 points, the same as a race win over his teammate Norris.
Very uncharacteristic from him, wasn't it? Yeah, those mistakes, the crash in quali, the jumping the start at the start of the race and then crashing on lap 1. He was obviously asked about it here in Singapore in the press conference, and he said, look, I'm human and I make mistakes, and there's been a lot of chatter up and down the paddock about whether it's the pressure getting to him. I think there's absolutely no doubt he is under pressure. He is fighting for his first World Championship. This might be his only chance at a championship with the new regulations coming in next year, and we have no idea what the pecking order will be next season. So this might be it. Of course he's under pressure. He has not just his teammate Lando Norris breathing down his neck. He also has, as unrealistic as it might have sounded a few races ago, the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, who is absolutely on form. So I think with Piastri, I do believe he will bounce back. I do believe whatever was going on in Baku, we won't be seeing a repeat of that this weekend. McLaren do tend to go well around Singapore. But yeah, a very strange weekend for him. Maybe we'll find out what really happened in his autobiography in about 10 years.
I look forward to that one. If Mark Webber's is anything to go by, then I'm looking forward to Oscar Piastri's. But it was uncharacteristic, but he's spoken about that, and sort of the mistakes he made were almost quite basic in a way that,
totally rookie.
That you can just you can easily identify where it went wrong, which is why I tend to agree with you. It seems like a pressure situation. A man like Oscar Piastri doesn't always jump the start, but I tell you what, we'll hold that conversation. Smoke in the pit lane, Jenny Gao.
Yes, and it stinks. The Williams car is on fire. It's at the back. There's crews just coming with fire extinguishers. I think it's probably the brakes, because you can smell it in the air. It's acrid. But they are trying to put that fire out with the extinguisher. I'm just going down as close as I can. I don't want to get too close and get in the way of people. But the crew are around it and they're trying to move it. But black, really thick smoke is now pouring out the back of it again. I think is it Carlos Sainz? It's hard to tell from this angle.
Alex Albon.
Oh, there we go. So Alex is still in the car at the minute, but I expect he may well jump out as soon as they wheel it back in. But you don't want to wheel that car back into the garage because it's still smoking far too much. So they're putting it forward again and releasing the extinguishers again. But yeah, they've certainly got a problem down at Williams.
Yeah, we're seeing the onboard camera that looks back into the cockpit, and even Alex Albon's having to squint his eyes and get the smoke out of his eyes. Clearly uncomfortable. They have wheeled that car back out into the pit lane. The Sauber team next door looking on to see what the damage is as Alex Albon climbs out of his Williams cockpit. And not the ideal start then for the Thai driver. This is the nearest he's going to get to a home race, just over 500 kilometres to the Thai border, with Malaysia splitting the two. So we're getting a look here. He comes into the pit lane. Let's hear from him.
Fire. Green default 1-5 when you can. Green default 1-5, single OK. Box this lap.
So that's Alex Albon on the radio there. So he reported fire, and then it started to smoke quite badly as he pulled up outside of his pit box. Let's go back to Jen.
Yeah, I'm just looking on now. It's coming from the back. It's not the brakes, as I probably suspected it was. It's actually coming from the engine. So that's not particularly what the team needed on a weekend which could be so crucial for their championship battle as well. They're staying in 5th place at the minute. They want to work themselves up, and they thought that this might be a track that suited them. Alex Albon has now left and gone through the garage. The car is very much still in the pit lane and still smoking this black, acrid smoke leaking out everywhere at the minute.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, Albon out of the car and not going anywhere anytime soon. It was his teammate, of course, who put that Williams on the podium in Baku last time out, rather cementing their 5th place in the Constructors' Championship. They're 29 points clear of 6th place Racing Bulls at the moment, but one car down at the current time in this free practice 1 session. Carlos Sainz up in 12th at the moment. It's Hadjar who has the leading time, a 1:34.329, as the other Williams of Sainz just slots in behind him. Max Verstappen, though, looks like he'll go to the top when he completes this current lap out there. He's fastest in the first and the middle sector. Let's just come back to our Oscar Piastri chat, Beck. As you say, made a jump start. They're easy, simple errors that a man challenging for the championship shouldn't make. So I agree with you. That seems like it is the pressure getting to him, as Verstappen does indeed go to the top with a 1:34.059. But I was chatting, I think, to Andrea Stella ahead of the race, and even he said these comments publicly, I think, since, where even Michael Schumacher made mistakes on race weekends like this. So no one is immune.
No, I think everyone makes mistakes. I mean, he is human, and it's actually nice to hear him say it, that, he makes mistakes and it happens, and, covering sport.
Alonso jumped the start as well behind him, didn't he?
He got caught out by Piastri, so, Lewis Hamilton makes mistakes, and during his championship fights as well. It does happen. The most important thing is that it does not happen again, and that is what Piastri was talking about yesterday in Singapore, is that he has learnt, as you say, Harry, it's pretty simple to identify where it went wrong. He jumped the lights and then he crashed his car, so perhaps don't do that again. So twice, actually. So I think he won't have left that weekend as devastated as he would have done if perhaps there was a big issue and he couldn't wrap his head around it and he didn't really understand why. And I was just watching a replay of Norris, who gets within millimetres of that wall, talking about how close the barrier is here. So I think he won't be too worried. I think probably more worried will be Lando Norris, who didn't actually capitalise on his championship rival being out of the race. He only took 7 points out of him. It should have been a lot more. Norris was talking about how that was maybe not a race-winning car because Verstappen had been so dominant all weekend, but he absolutely should have been on the podium. And I mean no disrespect to Carlos Sainz and Williams, but that McLaren was quicker, so he should have at least been on the podium and taken more out of him.
We just get a look of Charles Leclerc replaying over the Anderson Bridge, locking up the outside right tyre, running deep, just about gets it turned in with 48 minutes and 55, 54, 53 seconds remaining. It's Lando Norris who is top of the times of the 1:33.388 on the hard tyre. Alonso on the mediums, 2/10 back in the Aston Martin in second. Then comes Hamilton. Verstappen is fourth with Hadjar fifth. Sainz, Piastri, Lawson, Tsunoda and Russell the top 10, with Antonelli in 11th. Colapinto is 12th ahead of Hulkenberg. Ocon and Behrman the top 15. Gasly, Stroll, Leclerc on the lap at the moment, down in 18th ahead of Bortoletto. No time on the board and looking to be out of this session in the meanwhile for Alex Albon in his Williams. 19 drivers out there. One in the pit lane in the form of Max Verstappen and one in the garage in the form of Alex Albon. Also joining us throughout the course of the weekend is the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and we can cross over to 5 Live Race Centre now and say good afternoon, Andrew.
Hi Harry, how are you?
I'm very well, Andrew. It's always a pleasure to hear those dulcet tones.
And likewise, Harry. Good to have you back.
Thank you. Now, I will just make aware there is a bit of a delay here, so I'll ask this question, and I believe you actually want to make a point about Red Bull, I believe?
Yeah, I was chatting to Helmut Marko, the motorsport advisor at Red Bull, just before the session. It was spitting with rain as we were standing in the paddock, and he was really hoping it wasn't going to pour down, which obviously it hasn't, because he was saying that they really needed a dry session to set the car up. He was very optimistic about Max Verstappen's chances. Obviously, Verstappen comes here on the back of 2 victories. Singapore's not always been a great track for them, but they really feel they've made a breakthrough with that car. Thanks to Marco was saying Laurent Mekies, the new team principal, and him asking the right questions to the engineers. But it's key for them to make the right progress in this session to ensure that they sort of start the weekend on the right foot. And then from there, it would seem if they, Marco's confident if they can do that, then they can be competitive.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. It's going to be a really interesting weekend to watch Red Bull and how they perform around this track in particular. Max Verstappen, this is the only circuit on the current F1 calendar which he has never won. Off the back, though, of back-to-back wins, Monza, and then we went to Baku. So a man in form, a man that many are not discounting yet from this championship challenge, as we have been talking about, Beck. He could well prove a rather annoying thorn in Piastri and Norris's title bids. But this is going to be a really important weekend for Red Bull as well. It's a track notoriously they haven't gone well at, particularly with riding the curbs and the bumps. That has been a bit of an Achilles heel at times for them. But it will be a big turning point, do you think, for them if they have a good run here? Those improvements that were introduced, new floor in Monza, will come to fruition if they perform well here?
This is a huge test for Red Bull this weekend, and actually Marco that Benny was just talking about, he said it himself that this is massive. And just to put it into context in terms of the title fight, because within the paddock people do believe Verstappen's in the hunt, but Charles Leclerc put it around 20% chance, and I think that's maybe fair. But before we went into Zandvoort, he was 94 points behind Piastri. He's now 69 points behind. So in 2 races, he's taken 25 points out of the championship leader. 7 races to go, so that's an average of about 10 points a race. It is a big ask, but you just don't know. And in terms of this track, the only race that Red Bull did not win in 2023 was this race in Singapore. It was won by the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. He finished that race 9th, but then last year he came and he was 2nd behind a very dominant Norris. But actually Norris was also saying yesterday in his media day that Verstappen was only 0.1 seconds behind him in quali, which sounds a lot, but it isn't really. We have this new floor, as you mentioned, on the Red Bull. Mekies does seem to be having quite an enormous impact on that team. All of the momentum seems to be with Verstappen. He is absolutely the best driver on the grid at the moment. I don't think there's really any question about that. And so for me, I wouldn't be that surprised if he came out and won this weekend. It just seems so very Verstappen. And don't forget, he's absolutely riding the high of having won at the Nordschleife last weekend.
Yeah, it was pretty impressive actually watching him on the live streams of him going around the Nordschleife. I mean, not every driver can do that for many reasons, but you really get a gauge of how skilled Max Verstappen is and what he brings to motorsport in whole and in general. And I spoke to him yesterday, Beck, and he was saying he has unfinished business here. And it is quite remarkable. It's hard to really quantify because seasons differ, length of seasons, so lots of races this time out. But he's the only driver to even have a chance of completing all winning all the tracks on the current calendar. No one else is in with a chance of doing that. And this weekend, he can get the clean sweep. He has won every single track apart from this one, as you said earlier. And I think that's a bit of a challenge for him. He loves the challenge, so what better way than to close down the gap between him, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, and at the same time do the sweep.
When Max Verstappen says he has unfinished business with something, I think everyone quakes in their boots slightly. Turned 28 years old this week.
I know.
Can you believe
Still a pup, isn't he?
He's now, it's the first time I believe he's older than the average age of the grid.
Stop it, you make me feel old.
Sorry.
Can I go back to the Nordschleife very quickly though, because one of the things I really loved about his approach to the Nordschleife is that he had to qualify for it. He wasn't just given the right to race, and he was like, yeah, fair play, whatever, I'll follow your rules, they're your rules and they're there for the safety of myself and also others. So he went and he had to prove himself that he was actually able to race the Nordschleife properly, which he did another weekend away, and then he turned up last weekend with his team and he was utterly brilliant in a Ferrari, I should say.
Well, that's the thing. He won in a Ferrari this year, which neither Lewis Hamilton or Charles Leclerc have managed to do. I watched that Nürburgring race, and even before he got to turn 1, he'd taken the lead. He didn't start on pole. He took the lead before they got to turn 1, and then never really looked back. And I love the fact that it's his team. The other driver in the car as well was part of his, initially part of his simulator team, Team Redline, which Max Verstappen basically runs and operates. And he had brought a sim racer up through the ranks and into the real world. And I just think that whole sort of, it's a side hustle for him in a way. And I think that's incredible.
But it then leads to the next question. Would he do Le Mans? Would he do Le Mans with Ferrari, or with Ford coming into Red Bull, does he race for Ford and then suddenly we're back with Ford v Ferrari?
Oh, I love it. I like that. But I think there is scope. I think there's 24 hours of the Nürburgring that he wants to do next year. Le Mans surely on that list. And if you're every other driver, everyone is so jealous of Max Verstappen.
They're so jealous, and they're openly jealous as well. They were all talking about it yesterday, just like literally grinning from ear to ear, talking about him, his achievements, how much they loved what they all watched him do it as well. It was brilliant.
But I think they all kind of agreed that really Max Verstappen is the only one that can kind of afford to do it, because he is Max Verstappen.
Yeah, there were a lot of mentions about his 4 world titles.
And I think Esteban Ocon, I can't remember exactly the quote he said. He was like, yeah, that's something I would like to do, but obviously I'm not quite in that position. I thought, yeah, fair play. Look, we've still got pretty much majority of the field circulating out there on the track. Just getting a look at Pierre Gasly coming out of turn 14 along Raffles Avenue. Slight right-hand kink into the braking zone. Locks up, runs wide, and there is a bit of runoff area waiting for him. And Lewis Hamilton as well, I think, finding the same thing. Oh no, he does make the turn in. Gets dangerously close to the wall on the exit. Running as close as you dare, inches from the wall, but that is how you find the speed here. But of course, this track at this time of day in the daylight, it's a dirty track as well. The times will be unrepresentative. They will come down massively once we get into free practice 2 later on in the evening. But one man who will be very much on the back foot despite the conditions that aren't exactly representative is Alex Albon in that Williams. Last time we saw him, it was a rather smoky car in the pit lane. Jenny Gow, have we got any more news on that front?
Yes, they have managed to put the fires out and they put the car back in the garage now. Alex experienced a rear brake hardware problem, which we are now investigating, say the team. He will not join the remainder of FP1, but we are confident he can resolve the issue for FP2. So hopefully he'll get back out there for the more representative session. And just an update, we'll just walk down to Lance Stroll's garage at Aston Martin. They've got the back off the car, just having a fiddle with something out the rear of the car, but also trying to make Lance a bit more comfortable. A lot of the drivers are complaining with these new vests that they're wearing, the cooling vests. They're a bit thicker, a bit more uncomfortable to wear, especially if they're going over bumps, and this circuit is known for its bumps, usually. So I think they're just padding it out so that Lance feels a bit more comfortable. So he's currently out the car, but just getting ready to climb back in.
Yeah, I think he won't be the only one, will he, Jen? It's to do with his tubing, isn't it, in that cooling vest and where you place it and have it on you. George Russell ran it in Bahrain earlier this year as a test. Said he enjoyed it, but it was noticeable, particularly going through the corners at high speed, the G-forces really pushing the tubing into the side of his ribs. So finding that comfort will be key, but equally, if you can stay cool throughout the course of 2 hours under the lights in Singapore with not just the heat but the humidity as well, it might be worth it. Current air temperature just over 29 degrees, track temperature 35 degrees, humidity around 72% at this Marina Bay circuit. Coming back to that Red Bull chat, Lando Norris, by the way, is fastest, a 1:32.4, ahead of Verstappen, Alonso, Leclerc and Hamilton, the top 5. And we talk about unfinished business that Max Verstappen may have. One man who seems to have unfinished business is Christian Horner, the former CEO and team principal of Red Bull. Been a lot of talk about where he might come back into the Formula One fold, Beck, talking to a couple other teams, maybe even bringing a 12th team in.
Yeah, so a lot has been developing in Singapore up and down the paddock. Obviously, nothing is really secret, as we've said many a time before. Ayu Komatsu, the team principal there, said that Horner had approached them. The team didn't approach him. He came into them, confirmed that, and said talks have gone no further. Flavio Briatore over at Alpine is absolutely refusing to rule out the possibility of Horner having some role in that team in the future. There has been some suggestion about him joining Aston Martin as an investor. I'm saying no. Mostly on the basis of Adrian Newey being there, and Adrian Newey's already left Red Bull. He wanted a fresh start, so I'm not really buying into that one. And then the race, a motorsport website, they said yesterday, they reported that actually Horner could be setting up his own team, which is not as fanciful as it may sound. We obviously know we have an 11th team coming in next year with Cadillac. It actually started out as Mario Andretti's team, and he was trying to bring it in, and then things sort of fell apart, and Cadillac have come in and taken over that project. So Horner could potentially be looking to do that. What we do know from his time during his tenure as team principal and CEO was that he actually wanted to be an investor. He wanted more of a stake. He didn't want to be an employee. Similar to the kind of model we see over at Mercedes with Toto Wolff. He's obviously an owner and the team principal. And so Horner was always very interested in that. He obviously has this massive payout from Red Bull now that he's officially left. It was in the region of 50 odd million quid, which sounds like a lot of money, but it's not going to set you up an F1 team, so you're going to need an investor. And actually, Benny, maybe you've been hearing some more stuff. You always love this kind of stuff. But yeah, so that's where we are. So if Horner does have his own team, it wouldn't be for 2028. As you can imagine, it's a huge amount of work. You have to start from scratch, basically. Engines, chassis, factories in themselves are about $1 billion to build. So lots and lots of chatter. It does seem like Horner is trying to get his way back into the paddock.
He's not done with Formula One.
Oh no, he won't like how he left either. It was all kind of very immediate, announced after the British Grand Prix on the Tuesday.
Didn't get a farewell.
It's all a bit murky, isn't it? He won't have enjoyed that. A bit like, actually, thinking of which, Singapore last year with Danny Rick, the absolute nonsense that we witnessed, everyone knowing it was his final race, but for reasons unknown to anyone, they didn't announce it. It's a horrible way to leave the sport when you've done so much for it.
He does have, though, the race lap record here. That was his fond farewell. A 1:34.486 was what allowed him to keep that keepsake as his Formula One career came to a close this time last year. Talk of Red Bull, though, as Hadjar is on a quick lap at the moment. Let's just see where this puts the French rookie up to third in the Racing Bulls. Let's head back to the top team, Red Bull. I think Jen's found herself outside their garage. What news, Jen?
Certainly haven't. Just watching on the big screen within Red Bull, Isaac Hadjar going around the Marina Bay circuit. He celebrated his 21st birthday as well last week. So lots of birthdays at Red Bull. He celebrated it in Japan, which I have no idea why he was there. He didn't elaborate, but obviously had a nice time there. And looking at Max Verstappen's Red Bull, you can just hear the tyres getting twisted on. I think there might be a little bit of damage that he picked up on the floor. They were checking it out. Paul Monahan, who's the chief mechanic, was on his hands and knees. He doesn't often get down there, but if something's not right for Max, he will do, and he did that, so that's always a sign that something's not quite as it should be. But Max is just getting pulled down by his physio, and it won't be long until he goes back out on circuit, eagerly watched by Valtteri Bottas for Mercedes, who's just on the other side of the pit wall with a white baseball cap on, headphones, hand in pocket, just looking out over the side of the racetrack. Nice view.
I'm sure it is. Thank you very much, Jenny. I've just had producer Paddy absolutely tear my ear off because I said, let's head to the top team now. Jen's outside Red Bull. Obviously, in the context, I meant the top Red Bull team, not the top team in Formula One.
Well, favouritism, Harry.
Well, no, mathematically they are. But there's a good point, isn't there?
Hang on, in whose maths?
Well, they're ahead of their junior team.
Oh, yeah, but the top team within the Red Bull stable. But that's not how you said it.
Well, yeah, but we would just talk about Racing Bulls. So obviously I was like, now let's head to the top Red Bull team.
That's not what you said.
Right, okay, well, I'm glad we cleared that all up.
But should we talk about the Constructors' Championship while we're talking about top teams?
Yes, because McLaren can clinch it.
I mean, they surely can't not.
I mean, they didn't manage it last time,
yeah,
but now that makes it even more of a foregone conclusion. Do you have the permutations? Would you like to give them, or would you like me to?
No, you do it.
I'll do it. I've got it actually because people will get annoyed at me if I get it wrong. So McLaren have a 333-point lead over Mercedes. 346 points can still be scored out of the 3 sprint weekends and 4 normal weekends we have remaining. So Mercedes would need to outscore them by 31 points this weekend. Essentially, if one McLaren is on the podium or both McLaren drivers finish in the top 7, they'll secure at least 14 points and the title, regardless of where Mercedes or Ferrari finish. So those are the permutations for Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri to seal McLaren what will be their 10th Constructors title under the lights in Singapore. And actually, in a way, I think Singapore's probably a better place to celebrate a title win.
Basically, the champagne is on ice, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I think you want to be winning the championship here in Singapore rather than Baku. No offence to Baku, I like it as a city, but you're probably going to have a better night out in Singapore.
I reckon so, and they'll be hoping for a much cleaner weekend. Of course, Lando Norris was pretty dominant this time last year around the streets of Singapore. He was miles ahead of everybody else. He did nearly, though, have a bit of a skirmish with the wall all by himself during the race, just to manage to find himself out of it and carry on running. 31 minutes and 37, 36, 35 seconds remaining. It's Lando Norris who is indeed fastest, 21 thousandths of a second separating him and Verstappen. Hadjar is in third, Alonso, Leclerc the top 5, Tsunoda's 6th, Leclerc ahead of Lawson. Then it's Hamilton, Sainz and Piastri, the top 10. Russell and Antonelli, the two Mercedes drivers, just outside in the top 12. Gasly ahead of the two Haas drivers, Behrman and Ocon in 14th and 15th, with Stroll 16th, Hülkenberg 17th, Colapinto is 18th, ahead of Gabriel Borsaletto 19th, the last of the runners, with no time from Alex Albon, out with those brake issues. He will not get out for the remainder of the session. Jenny Gow.
About the championship being won here as I'm stood in front of the McLaren garage. Both cars are currently in there at the minute as well, but it's never been won here before. In the history of F1, Singapore has never hosted a championship decided when it comes to constructors. So I think it would be a nice place to do it. And as you say, the parties in Singapore after a race are always good, and I think with the golden ticker tape falling down around us, it would be fitting to have it here. Although Austin next time would be okay too. I mean, I don't mind.
No, not at all.
Or Mexico, Brazil, maybe not. No, Brazil, we've had some good nights out in Brazil. But yeah, Austin or Mexico. I mean, it's not going to Austin, let's be honest.
No, but on the flip side, the way the driver's title is going, I am fully expecting that to go down to Abu Dhabi.
Well, you want it to go to Abu Dhabi, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Well, who doesn't?
I mean, I do
For the good
as well,
of the sport,
yeah,
you want it to go down to the wire.
Also a good night out afterwards.
Is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, my memory goes to 2021 where actually Max Verstappen celebrated that year on his own yacht. So, but there are good nights out there as well.
That'll do. I'm sure Ben...
Actually, I'm sure it wasn't his yacht. I'm sure it was a Red Bull yacht.
Well, I know Benson's got his yachts lingering around, so he'll be able to get us on his party boat, I'm sure.
Oh, Benny, the king of parties.
Yeah. The King Benny, that's the name of his yacht.
Fernando Alonso will get invited. No, that's the name of his yacht, Fernando Alonso.
We'll leave it there because he won't like this one bit. Less than half an hour remaining. Carlos Sainz is running well at the moment, 9th, but fastest in the middle sector, now on the medium tyre. And this midfield battle is if you've listened to our coverage for a while, you know I love a midfield battle, but the battle for 5th just seems to be stemming away slightly because Williams have really kind of concreted their position in 5th with that really amazing podium by Carlos Sainz, aided by the fact overtaking was rather difficult in Baku, but still he had to put it in that position in qualifying and hold on to it. Good strategy from the team as well, operating at a really high level as he goes to the top of the timings right now, 1:31.812, 2/10 clear of Fernando Alonso, also on the medium tyre, so they're swapping to those medium compound. I just think it's almost like a bit of a restart for Carlos Sainz's season, which up until Baku hadn't really been going that well.
He sort of said the same thing himself as well here in Singapore. You're absolutely right. He was actually talking about he was coming off the back of 2 particularly bad races for him. His confidence was low. He absolutely had not expected to go into Baku with a podium, and we've seen Alex Albon, his teammate, who's been outperforming him all year. You could argue that, okay, Albon's been with the team a lot longer, he's a lot more settled, but Sainz is extremely experienced, former Ferrari driver at McLaren as well, so he's no stranger to moving teams either. Maybe it's taken a bit longer to bed into that team than he or perhaps anyone else was expecting. But he is on a huge high. I mean, wasn't it brilliant? I think everyone up and down the paddock was very happy to hear him singing Smooth Operator. And actually, I thought it was nice. James Vowles, the team principal at Williams, former Mercedes strategist, Toto Wolff sent Muff a little present and some champagne. And everyone was genuinely very, very happy for the team. They look like they have pretty much cemented 5th place in the championship, 101 points, with Racing Bulls behind them in 6th on 72. So I think that, that's huge for them in terms of prize money as well. That's all dependent on the Constructors' Championship. So yeah, huge for Williams. Obviously this isn't great what we're seeing with Albon, losing a lot of running, but if you're going to lose running, you want to lose it in FP1. It's not indicative of the conditions that you're going to be qualifying in or racing in over the weekend. I'm sure they seemed pretty confident in that message that they will get him out for FP2. So yeah, if you're going to have a problem, it's now. Sainz is on an absolute high, and the thing with this track is it's very different to where we're coming from. It's high downforce, it's slow corners, and it's really an enormous challenge for the drivers. And I would expect someone like Sainz, with all of his experience and talent, to actually go pretty well here.
I mean, Williams have scored now over 100 points in a season. That's the first time they've done that since 2016. So just sort of charting their progress.
More points than the previous 7 seasons combined.
And for Carlos Sainz, he now makes it, he's finished on the podium in every season since 2019. which I think is quite incredible for Carlos Sainz.
That is very impressive. I mean, look at the teams he was driving for.
Exactly, but also the other thing is, every team he has joined has suddenly had an uplift in performance and moved themselves up by a fair few positions in the Constructors' Championship to where they were before he joined.
And I don't think that's a coincidence. He's a seriously nice guy. He brings really good energy. He's got a really nice team around him. He's very smart. You know, we've talked about this a lot, about the feedback that the drivers give, how incredibly important that is to the development of the car. We're actually seeing a bit of it with Red Bull at the moment. You know, they're saying maybe we don't look at the data so much, we're so reliant, we never listen to the driver. They're now listening to the drivers more, and we've seen obviously the last 2 races. Carlos Sainz has a reputation for, you know, he goes to these meetings, he's bright, he understands what the engineers are saying, he gives all this amazing feedback. But also, more than that, he really adds to the culture of a team. He's very well liked. He's in for a joke. He'll play golf with the team. He plays chess, and you know, he really gets stuck in and wherever he's needed. And he's just a good bloke to have around. So he's good for morale as well.
He even popped up, I think, after Baku on one of our sister channels on BBC Radio 1 on their breakfast show, and he was brilliant because he starts chiming in about, he starts sponsor naming and saying all these things, and I was tearing my hair out going, no, Carlos, what are you doing? He knew exactly what he was doing.
Oh, he's a pro. He's an absolute pro.
But he absolutely mastered it. And let's not forget as well, he is a driver with an engineer's mindset, as Kimi Antonelli has a moment through turn 1.
Just got a massive sliding one, and no traction afterwards.
Okay, copy.
Yeah, it was a massive slide through turn 1, but he managed to correct it and hold it together, but wouldn't have done his time any good. Antonelli, who is currently in 6th position, he has this engineering mindset, does Carlos Sainz. Let's not forget, in that 2023 season, he was the only non-Red Bull to win a race, and it was here in Singapore with an absolute tactical masterclass involving using the DRS and keeping Lando Norris in bay, helping him defend from George Russell and Hamilton. That, when maybe a car is not in a position on outright performance to get a podium, to get big points, to get a race win, that's where somebody like a Carlos Sainz can make the difference.
100%, because also in the years that he was with Ferrari, we saw a lot of mistakes from the reliability, from the strategy side, and particularly on the strategy side. We saw it from both drivers, actually, Leclerc and Sainz. But Sainz in particular, in that race that you're talking about, Harry, with Singapore, he was basically calling the strategy and saying, we need to do this, we need to do this, and he knew he was on for that win. The Ferrari wasn't particularly spectacular that year. Obviously, Red Bull utterly dominant. But he absolutely 100% deserved that win. It was on merit. There wasn't luck involved.
No, it was phenomenal. Let's see, though, if that podium in Baku has given Carlos Sainz a bit of resurgence in this last quarter of the season or so. Certainly looking good. Fastest at the moment, ahead of Fernando Alonso. They made the switch to the medium tyres, but there's a bit of a split, actually, in where everyone's going on tyres. Charles Leclerc has stuck on the soft tyre now and gone fastest. Max Verstappen is also out there on the soft rubber, along with Lando Norris, who is fastest of anybody in the first sector. The tyres are indeed the same as we got last year, so the main stress that's going to come on these tyres will be thermal degradation and keeping them within temperature throughout the race. Expecting the medium and hards for the race, but let's see how things pan out. Last year, to give you a bit of context, Lando Norris took the win, started on the medium tyre, went to around lap 29, lap 30 before changing to the hard tyre and going all the way to the end. Lewis Hamilton then started on the soft tyre. He was actually starting in 3rd, but he lost positions, went to around lap 16 or 17, put the hards on till the very end and lost positions, finished down in 6th as Lando Norris crosses the line on his soft tyre and goes 2nd fastest, 4/10 adrift of Charles Leclerc.
And right now, Harry, a lot of the teams are looking at the data for the pit lane and trying to work out what their early predictions of strategy will be. Of course, they've got loads of simulation tools, all sorts of different ways of making the best choice, hopefully. But this pit lane has gone up in speed as well. It's one of those ones that's gone from 60 kilometres now up to 80 kilometres, and that does change the pit stops, average 3 to 4 seconds. So the teams are timing every time they come into the pit, take a practice stop and go out again, just to see how that will factor into the race. And if this will unlock the opportunity for a 2-stop, it's unlikely, I think, that it will come to a 2-stop, because it's just following people around on track is really difficult here and really hard to overtake. But there is a chance that could unlock a different strategy for someone.
Possibly, yeah. We should say, though, safety car probability is quite high, around about 80%. There hasn't been a red flag in the last 5 Singapore Grand Prix, though, which I find quite bemusing. As a couple of drivers out there, we're just seeing some replays, pushing the limits. Ollie Bearman running deep down at turn number 7. And the Alpine of Franco Colapinto getting so close to the outside wall at 17. That is a familiar sight we've seen year on year. But that is the thing with Singapore. Yes, okay, overtaking is not as easy as some might expect, even after the removal of a couple of those 90-degree corners when we used to go along the waterside and under the bridge.
I felt very understeering.
Piastri giving some feedback, not liking how much understeer he's got within his car at the moment. He's a second off, actually. Dan in 6th is the Australian who leads the championship. This could be another thing, though, that does play on Piastri's mind slightly, because if you look at the factors that built up towards his off weekend in Baku, pretty much all weekend long, he was a bit behind Lando Norris. It was another one of those race weekends where Norris just had that bit of an edge. But, of course, now we all wait for Piastri to pull something out of the bag on the final lap in Q3. Of course, that didn't happen. But I wonder, even from an FP1 session, there is a disparity already. Is that just going to slightly play on his mindset, as you say, 24 years old, going for his first ever World Championship? All these factors have to come into play, but I know they're not like you and I, are they? We're mere mortals.
We are mere mortals, and they are mere, absolutely bonkers, driving at concrete walls at 200 miles an hour. I don't think we should read too much into this session, purely because we are not in anywhere near the same conditions. It's still, I was going to say sunny, but it's actually quite cloudy, but it's all daytime basically. And when the 1600 light bulbs get turned on, that's when we'll get a better impression of actually the pecking order that we're seeing now. But I do think you're right to a degree, Harry. I think there will be mind games going on. There have to be mind games going on. The perfect example of this is 2016 with Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton. And I remember Nico Rosberg every race saying, I'm just taking it race by race, I'm just taking it race by race. And then at the end, when he won in Abu Dhabi and we got to speak to him, you could physically see his body relaxing, and then he just turned around and said, I've been so nervous the whole time I was playing. And then it all comes out. I've been playing mind games. He was turning up late to briefings, trying to mess with the head, and that absolutely, as it does in any sport, the mental side of it does come into play. So I think what we will start to see, it's an unbelievably long season. Everyone's shattered already. We've had 17 races. We've still got 7 to go. It's a long old slog.
Cheer up, Bet.
But it is up. And still we're only 25 points between the two teammates. It's brilliant.
Which is actually incredible to think about it.
Great season. But absolutely, this is the business end now. It's when it gets really serious. It's when the mind games start kicking in. You cannot do anything to avoid the pressure. I don't care who you are. I don't care how cool, calm and collected you are. You could be the Iceman and you still feel the pressure. So I think very much more will start to be read into this than perhaps it normally would have been. But, that's sport, that's part of it. And I think it will be very interesting now to see who can kind of deal with that pressure the best. I think having Mark Webber in his corner, former Red Bull driver, now his manager, who was famous for being the number 2 driver at Red Bull with Sebastian Vettel there, I think that will be really important. Lando Norris has been very open about his mental health and how he's been dealing with that. He's changed his approach to races since the summer, and that has had an impact as well. To the positive for him. He's saying, he doesn't let things weigh on him so much. So I think it'll be fascinating to see how these two play out. But I think what will also start to play into their mind is Verstappen, as we've spoken about, because at the moment it feels a little bit like these two drivers, Piastri and Norris, are driving on either side of the road, and Verstappen is creeping down the middle, looking to swoop straight through at this big gap that they might be leaving.
It's not the first time it's happened in Formula One history, and I dare say it won't be the last when it happened. Kimi Raikkonen managed to sneak in there in 2007 when the two McLaren drivers were battling.
No, McLaren couldn't get themselves sorted, and Kimi Raikkonen came out and nicked the Drivers' Championship.
Arguably
nicked, I probably should have
No,
been
he earned it.
He earned it, yeah.
Arguably, the mind games in that 2007 season between the two McLaren drivers might have been on another level than they are now.
Wild.
There needs to be some sort of in-depth analysis on the various mind games, I think, throughout Formula One history. That would be quite insightful, especially that 2016 season. Incredible.
2021 as well. I mean,
Yes.
you don't have to be in the same team to do it.
No.
Hamilton and Verstappen were doing it to each other. You look at Vettel and Hamilton in 2019. Oh, 18, sorry.
Let's start making a list, and I think it will go on for at least
might
a
get
couple of
book
A4.
commission out of this,
Yes,
Harry.
exactly. Maybe I should stop talking about it now. 16 minutes and 14, 13, 12, 11 seconds remaining. Charles Leclerc, quickest out there on the soft tyre, 10th quicker than Verstappen, also on the soft. Then it's Norris and Hadjar who is stuck on the soft tyre and gone 4th fastest, ahead of Sainz, the quickest medium runner. Hamilton is 6th, ahead of Alonso. Piastri, Tsunoda and Lawson, the top 10. Hülkenberg is 11th, ahead of the two Mercedes drivers. Antonelli ahead of George Russell. And then we have Ocon, Stroll, the top 15, with Behrman, Colapinto and Gasly, the top 18 drivers. Bortoletto is 19th. No Alex Albon with those brake issues, as we hear the sounds of Isaac Hadjar making his way over the Anderson Bridge into the left-hander that awaits you at the end, up through the gears, 3rd, then 4th, up to 5th. And I think he just had a bit of a wobble coming over the bridge before making his way into turn 13. As Oscar Piastri finds himself a Lewis Hamilton in turn 1.
And Ferrari will invent mirrors one day, I hope.
Okay, that's got to be up there with one of the best team radio messages of the season.
Pressure. What pressure?
One day they'll invent mirrors. Up there with, was it Hamilton? What race was it? Where make a cup of tea while you're at it.
Oh, and also Russell, is it raining? No, it's sweat.
He'll never live that one down. Never
Nor
live
should
that
he.
one down. There is still a couple of unconfirmed seats for next year. I mean, technically both the Mercedes drivers are to be announced. However, verbally at least, Toto Wolff has said, yeah, no, we'll have Kimi Antonelli and George Russell for next year. That contract talk around George Russell is very much still ongoing as he tries to get himself the best possible deal, and really earns one, because he's been performing magnificently in a car that isn't able to challenge for race wins and for the title, for certainly consistently being the next best after the two McLarens and Max Verstappen, as he's out there at the moment on the medium tyre, personal best in the first sector. Piastri's going for another run as well. But it's the Red Bull saga too, which continues to unfold. Who will be alongside Max Verstappen next year? Who will be in those two Racing Bulls seats? I put to you, Rebecca Clancy, another spanner in the works. McLaren development driver in their programme, Alex Dunn, the Irishman, who we've seen in a couple of free practice 1 sessions this year. In the build-up to this weekend's Grand Prix, it was announced that they have mutually parted ways, with still a couple of Formula 2 races left to run in the season. But Dunn and McLaren are no longer together. Cue the rumour mill.
And it has gone wild. So this is a really interesting development. So Alex Dunn is currently driving in F2, and Red Bull do have within their stable another driver in F2 called Arvid Lindblad, a British driver. And there was a lot of chatter before the McLaren announcement about who was going to fill which seat. Max Verstappen absolutely game on for the Red Bull seat. Who will drive alongside him? Maybe Yuki Tsunoda, maybe not. He's done a lot in his favour after Baku, where he had a very good race, best finish of the season in 6th. Then we have Liam Lawson, who obviously got demoted from the top team at the start of the season, and we have oh my goodness, my brain has just gone.
I was actually.
I know you weren't even.
else.
That's why you distracted me.
We talk about their Red Bull drivers. Isaac Hadjar.
Isaac Hadjar, we have to call him now, don't we?
No, he doesn't mind.
Oh, does he not?
No, he doesn't mind.
So we have Hadjar. Let's call him Hadjar. And they are vying for seats. So a lot of chat about Hadjar being the best rookie this season, and Hadjar being promoted to replace Tsunoda at the top team. However, Tsunoda has done quite a lot. If he can carry on the momentum, and with Mekies now being in place as team principal at Red Bull, it's not so clear-cut that Tsunoda will lose a seat. But within that mix was Lindblad. And there was talk of, well, perhaps he will come into the Racing Bulls and he will get that seat. But now we have Alex Dunn, a very, very promising driver in F2, Irish like you say, but he was with McLaren, so it was always thought there's nowhere for him to go, because we know McLaren are not going to give up on this pairing of Norris and Piastri, nor should they. But now Alex Dunn is being linked with the Red Bull stable, And so suddenly they've gone from having 5 drivers fighting for 4 seats to what would now possibly appear to be 6. And you'd think if they're taking in Alex Dunn, who is currently 5th in the standings in F2, versus Lindblad, who is 7th, then it's all got a bit messy.
It is a bit messy, and you would have seen all of this written in great detail by Andrew Benson on the BBC's F1 website about Dunn closing in on a Red Bull deal after leaving McLaren. The 19-year-old Formula 2 driver, he has been impressing in his Formula 1 outings as well, in Austria earlier in the year, in Monza. We saw him as well in FP1, performing well against Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, respectively. But I suppose the bottom line is there's no room in the inn, at least immediately, for an Alex Dunn to slot into a McLaren seat. Say all you want about Red Bull and how they treat their drivers, they're not shy of giving anyone an opportunity, that's for sure.
No, and I do like that.
And I think I more credit to them. But I think, and this is also alluded to in the story you'll read online as well, that, and I also think this about Arvid Lindblad, having watched a couple of races from him. He didn't have the best Monza round. It was a bit crashy, let's say. Technical term.
Is that a word?
Yeah, we're going to make it one. And so if I'm Red Bull and you're on the cusp of a brand new set of regulations, it's going to be hard for everybody up and down the grid. Drivers are going to have to adapt to the race cars and adapt to their style of driving, and teams are going to really rely on experience more than ever from their drivers in the cockpit, the ones behind the wheel. So Tsunoda looks like he is building a little bit of momentum. Yes, he needs to continue and build more, but if he does, I think why would you change that? You keep that as it is, because all this second seat stuff, and he doesn't get the same bits and parts and upgrades that come. Well, that kind of goes out the window when we go for 2026, because it's a brand new reset and nobody knows which way the development angle is going to go as you get down the line. So you keep that. You give Hadjar, let's remember, still a rookie, you give Hadjar another year in Racing Bulls to really step up and cement what an amazing job he's done this year. And even Liam Lawson, he had an amazing Baku as well. You keep him because he's putting in performances and he's showing well. You give him his second full Formula 1 season, because yes, he's got more experience, but only bitty. He debuted here a couple of years ago and scored points, put Max Verstappen out of Q3. So let's remember that. And then you give Arvid Lindblad another year in Formula 2 along with Alex Dunn. You have, if Dunn does go to Red Bull, you have your 2 Red Bull juniors, and then once you've gotten through 2026, you see where the cards lie, and then you've got Red Bull are the cat with the cream suddenly, because they've got good drivers in their current Formula 1 seats, and they're building back a pretty top-tier junior program, which actually has been a bit lackluster over the last couple of years. There was a time in sort of the mid-2010s where they had so many top-rate drivers, and they didn't actually have enough room for them to go into Formula 1. We saw the likes of Kvyat come through, then Albon and Gasly and all these people, Ricciardo, of course. But you go back and you had some that were good but fell by the wayside. You look at Jean-Eric Verne. Yes, he did make it to Formula 1. But also there was a driver called Alex Lynn who was so good as a Red Bull junior, and now is winning races in sports cars. So they're getting back, I think, to a bit more of a golden era of junior drivers. If they do indeed secure Dunn, they give Lindblad another year. And that is my monologue on how I think Red Bull should go about their business.
I actually fully agree with you.
Wow.
Surprisingly. And
Can you be here all the time?
No. The reason is because I think in recent years, and we've seen it actually even this season with Liam Lawson, they're too quick. They don't give any time to breathe. And look, I know this is a sport judged in milliseconds, and I know that people are in it for the returns and that everyone wants a quick return these days. But actually, I think the best thing that they could do is be patient, and that they should actually, Dunn and Lindblad are not going to win the F2 Championship, which means they can compete again. The champion can't compete again. They have to go and race somewhere else. So they can stay in F2, and I think they just need to pause and be a bit calmer. And these decisions ultimately come down to Helmut Marko. He is the guy who advises, but he also runs the junior program. But I think we are seeing a bit of a different approach with Mekies now in place. Horner didn't really get too involved sometimes, although it was very much his decision to bring Ricciardo back in against Helmut Marko's wishes. I don't think Mekies will be like that, but I think Mekies as an engineer will very much, like you say, Harry, he'll want that consistency. He'll want them to bed in. I think Tsunoda, a lot of his progress that we're seeing is because of Mekies. So I think actually Tsunoda will be given a bit more time. I think this is high pressure for him this weekend, but I also think he'll be slightly forgiven if the car isn't quite where it should be. So in that sense, I think he'll sort of be fine this weekend. But yeah, I think the best thing they can do is as you say. And I think for Alex Dunn, it's a really, really good move because McLaren don't have a junior team. There is nowhere to go. Piastri and Norris are on long-term contracts. So actually, at least he can see a future in F1 if he does join that Red Bull stable.
It's exactly like Gabriel Bortoleto, who was a McLaren development driver, and there was nowhere to go. And obviously, orchestrated with Fernando Alonso managing him. He managed to get out of that deal and find himself a race seat at Sauber, which will become, a full works team in Audi.
Yeah, I know. Just to sort of interject slightly, could you please mention that Fernando Alonso has gone fastest for our dear colleague?
I was just about to get to that with less than 6.5 minutes remaining. We've had a lot of soft tyre running, and after that soft tyre running, it's Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, a 1:31.116, who is quickest ahead of Charles Leclerc and Max Verstappen, the top three.
Guys, I hate to disagree with you both, but I think I should be the voice of reason in this, and that's hard for me to say because I'm never the voice of reason, but I just want to throw it out there that actually I think you might be a little wrong. So I do foresee Isaac Hadjar moving up to Red Bull next year. I don't know this, it's just what I'm hearing roughly and what I think personally, but I also see that the done deal when it's done, I love saying that, excuse me, I think he'll stay in F2, but I think Lindblad will find his way to F1, and I think a seat at the junior team would work well, which means no room for Lawson, no room for Tsunoda. He would partner. Oh my goodness! Now it's got me going.
Well, no. So who would go? So either that. So by your logic, either Tsunoda or Lawson goes. Which one?
Well, I don't know, and I think that's what they're assessing at the moment. To which one of them goes? I think Yuki Tsunoda. Yes, he had a good last race out, but I actually think he's not proven anything so far. Lawson had a good race last time out as well, so I think the evaluation will go on. But what I do think is that actually having someone new to the team, new to these 2026, is that Team Radio? No. Okay, new to the 2026 regulations might actually work in their favour. Everyone's going, oh, you need tried and tested, but actually drop someone who's never raced F1. It won't be such a weird sensation for them. They'll just get in and they'll drive it. They don't know any different. So I don't know, that's my thought.
I wouldn't be surprised to see a change. I just think what they should do is stick with consistency.
It's a head scratcher, that's for sure. But I don't know. I mean, I've made my case, but then again, it's not up to any of us, is it? We just literally here rambling on about the various permutations of what could happen. Tsunoda's had a fair few years now in Formula One. Is it time he got this link with Honda as well, and they'll be leaving Red Bull, they'll be going to Aston Martin? Is Yuki Tsunoda a Red Bull driver, or is he more of a Honda driver? That's another question that keeps getting asked. Does he go to Aston Martin and be their reserve?
It's an interesting point, and I think contracts aren't really worth anything, as we well know, and certainly neither is Word. But I think he could go to Aston Martin. Fernando Alonso isn't going to be around forever. He has said he wants to stick with the team, particularly if they do badly this season, and next season if they're not doing so well. He really is committed to the team because he wants to help them improve. Lance Stroll is, Lance Stroll, the son of the owner, so he's not going anywhere, despite many believing that he'd quite like to. So I don't know where Tsunoda would end up. It is a very interesting question. My suspicion is that he probably is a bit of a Honda driver, and there's nothing wrong with that with the Japanese connection. A lot of drivers, Alex Albon is a Thai driver. We call him a Thai driver because that's where his sponsorship came from and it worked in his favour, but he was born and raised in England, so it's not a new thing, I suppose. But just very quickly talking about contracts as well, you mentioned about George Russell, the delay, who we're now watching going around the track. The delay in his contract apparently is not to do with the fact that he's looking elsewhere. When you get to a certain level within Formula One, you get to dictate your contract a lot more. And Harry, you were mentioning about how well he's done this season. He's 4th in the Drivers' Championship. He's actually only 43 points behind Max Verstappen. And we're talking about Max Verstappen in terms of title challenge. So that is how impressive George Russell has been this season. The delay, we believe, is in all of the little details of basically what the drivers hate doing. The sponsorship deals, the media. Talking to us, basically. He wants to do less of that. And you, to a degree, you can sort of understand it, because on top of all of the travelling, they've got to do their training, and they train twice a day. And it's actually very hard to get all of that in when you have 300 million other commitments from all your different sponsors. So when you get to a certain level in F1, it was also one of the delays in Lewis Hamilton's last contract with Mercedes. They just could not agree on how much extracurricular stuff they have to do.
Yeah, well, he's out there at the moment, circling down in 11th. Less than 2 minutes left of this free practice 1 session. Where has the time gone? It's still Alonso fastest. The two McLaren drivers are down in 5th and 6th. Piastri ahead of Norris. Jen, you're outside McLaren.
Yeah, funny for Piastri, just came into the pits and stopped in the box. No one was there, no one was around him, and suddenly one of the mechanics came out and gone from the outside of the car, which is also unusual, and started fiddling about with something to the right of Oscar's body. He opened his helmet, and the redness in his face was outstanding, really it was. You just can feel it's so hot in that cockpit, so obviously something wasn't very comfortable for him. Then the mechanics ran out. He's gone back out on track now, so whatever it was, hopefully he can sort it out in the last couple of minutes. But yeah, it's really a challenge coming to this circuit and driving. We look at it and go, oh, well, they look amazing going round, but actually 60-degree temperature inside that cockpit at times. It's arduous, it's torturous, and it's thrilling.
It certainly is, and Piastri's already had a bit of a skirmish with the wall a few moments ago. Managed to live to fight another day on that one. My inner sanctum in the pit lane have told me that Piastri had to make an unplanned pit stop to fix his radio because they lost all comms. So that explains that. But certainly, as soon as you lift the visor up, you'll see the drivers, I think, hot and sweaty. 3 to 4 kilos lost on Sunday's Grand Prix through perspiration alone around this Marina Bay street track. Tight, narrow, precision is an absolute must, where we go racing under the glare of floodlights, which now begin to turn on. Some 1,600 lighting projectors that illuminate this Singapore track. And that ends free practice 1, the session that began in the daytime as the sun slowly begins to set, and we even get a bit of racing action right in the closing stages between Carlos Sainz and the Williams, and it was Nico Hülkenberg.
I kept seeing what Hülkenberg is doing. That's not very clever.
That was down the inside at turn 16. Hülkenberg had the inside line. Rather, I think, caught Sainz a bit unsurprisingly, rather surprisingly, and took to the runoff. And, Carlos Sainz has injured it, not too happy about that, as Oscar Piastri has a little runoff into the runoff area. But certainly, even in FP1, the unrepresentative session of the weekend, certainly pushing hard, are they? Already are 20 drivers, but of course one of them didn't even get the running out there with Alex Albon with those brake issues. Fernando Alonso fastest of them all, though, ahead of Charles Leclerc's Ferrari. Max Verstappen 3rd, Lewis Hamilton 4th, with Oscar Piastri in 5th, ahead of his teammate Norris. Hadjar, Sainz, Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon the top 10, with Russell, Hülkenberg, Gasly, Antonelli and Lawson the top 15. Ollie Behrman was 16th, ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Lance Stroll 18th, and Franco Colapinto last of the timed runners in 19th, and no running for Alex Albon. He'll be hoping to get out and everything fixed in time for FP2, which you can join us on later this afternoon. We'll be on Sports Extra 2 from just before 2 o'clock. My thanks to Rebecca Clancy, to Jenny Gow, to Andrew Benson, and everybody that makes up an absolutely cracking team. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.